stage is using your whole body, as like you have your head, your chest, and then your legs. And in film, you have like your eyebrows, your eyes, and your mouth.
And welcome to episode 2 of the Comedy and Film Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Benjamin Vomastic, and I am joined today with the lead in the upcoming production, Hometown Summer, Ben Corsi. How are you, Ben?
Hello, I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Last Friday morning.
Yeah. Thank you for joining today.
Yeah, of
Look forward
course.
to our discussion. So, just starting off, what got you into acting?
So I feel like as far back as I can remember, I just always wanted to be an actor. Uh, like it's just something that, as a little kid, I would be. I was a huge Pirates of the Caribbean fan,
Mm-hmm.
and when I was little, I was for like 10 years straight Captain Jack at Halloween, and I,
Okay.
as like 6, 7 year old, I would have the movie memorized, and I'd be like in the costume, and I'd be doing the movie along with watching the movie, and
Mm-hmm.
it was just so much fun doing that. And like, playing Army Man or something as a little kid, I always took it so much more seriously than anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was just that love of Pirates of the Caribbean and just that love of like playing around and having fun with it and like exploring new stuff. And I've always loved movies and TV, so
For sure,
yeah.
yeah. So, when did you like get in? I assume you started with like plays around like
Mhm.
elementary school age or middle school, or like when did that start?
Yeah, so I did the musical in seventh grade,
Hmm.
and that was the first one I did. It was
Oh wow,
Music
okay.
Man Junior.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then I did eighth grade, and then when I got to high school, I did the plays and musicals every year. And around, I think, like junior year, beginning of junior year, end of sophomore year, my director kind of started hinting towards I should go into this. And at the time, I didn't really think about making it a career. Like it was weird. I always wanted to be an actor, but I didn't start taking it seriously until the end of high school.
Yeah, that's wild. That sounds like you got a bit of a late start
Yeah, yeah.
in terms of like acting more seriously.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
I definitely took it seriously while I
yeah,
was doing it, but
right.
like not thinking about the future as much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, no, that's what I meant. Like from like a
hmm
more like organized perspective,
yeah,
like more
yeah,
structure to it. I'm quite surprised. I would have thought that you'd been acting like through school a lot longer.
yeah.
That's really cool to hear. Wow. Yeah. So you're talking about like how you would reenact the scenes from Pirates of the Caribbean.
hmm
Hey, did you ever like check out the screenplay, or was it more so just like acting by imitation?
I guess it was more acting by imitation, young,
Hmm.
and I would because I'm very good at like auditorily parroting something back. Like when I did musicals, I don't consider myself a singer by any means, but
Hmm.
I can't read music. But when I would
Hmm.
work with a vocal coach, she would be able to play it, and then I would be able to just kind of match around and work it that way.
Hmm.
And in high school, my director said that he would give me a note, and then I would just immediately kind of know what he meant,
Hmm.
and then be able to take that and run with it. And so that's just kind of what I did while I was watching it, I guess.
Hmm.
I'd like see what they were doing and then take that and run with it and have fun and explore different choices, I guess.
For sure. Yeah. Well, it sounds like
Yeah.
you've had an interesting path for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when did film acting start? Did that start in college?
Yeah, that was I think always the goal, but I
Hmm.
only had access to stage. And
Hmm.
then in college, I got cast in a play that I didn't really like it. I thought the plot wasn't very good. And
Hmm.
I was a very small role, and this was my junior year, and I decided to just focus on film because that's what I wanted to do anyways.
Hmm.
And so I went and auditioned for this little student short film, and I absolutely bombed the audition to the
Hmm.
point where they didn't even think I was an actor. They thought I was just doing it for fun.
Hmm.
And then I had another one, which I ended up getting with a role that I wasn't even auditioning for. It was like the most lead guy role, but I was auditioning for just some like kind of side character.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that failing process for my first time for a film audition helped
Hmm.
me a lot understand how I work with auditions and
Yeah.
how I need to like find my piece.
Yeah, no, I feel like failure, like with anything in life, any industry, I feel like it's so important.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it can like be a curse if like you succeed really early at something, and like really just learning from your mistakes. I mean, yeah, that's like been a big part of my process, and anything I've done is really just going out and failing myself and like really like understanding like why what I did was wrong and like how to learn from it. So I think that brings up an interesting topic, though. Auditions. What is your process like when you initially audition for a role?
So basically, I have this little like Google Doc that I go through, and
Mm-hmm.
I read the script in my head silently to kind of
Right.
see what's going on with that and what comes to my mind, and then I'll break it down and try to understand like the what's going on, who's who, what's the relationship, what's my
Mm-hmm.
character's part in it, and then what's like the goal of the scene and where the
Right.
beats are and all that. And then I just kind of play with what I think the character is, like vocally, physically, mentally, and then once I kind of have all of that put together, I'll memorize by just saying everything in a monotoned way,
Mm-hmm.
so I don't like get stuck on a specific way of saying it. Um, and then I just try to have fun with it. Auditions can be stressful, but
For
something
sure.
that
Yeah.
I know I was told in college. And also, I have a book by Joanna Merlin, I believe, called Auditioning,
Mm-hmm.
which is really helpful. But basically, that the people that are auditioning you, like they hope that you are the one they want for the role, so they
Mm-hmm.
can just be done with the audition process because
Yeah. Yeah.
nobody likes it.
Yeah. For sure. So, how much time would you say like you put into a first audition tape? I'm assuming most of the auditions you have done have been at least like the first round has been through self tape.
Yeah, yeah, and
So
even
if
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, you're good.
Oh no, I was just gonna say that like so a first round audition tape I assume is usually around 1 to 5 minutes on the longer end, correct?
Yeah, if it's just one scene, uh, yeah, I think for film it's about like a minute per page is what
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
the rough estimate is. Yeah,
yeah. So like, how much time would you say that you like put into a first audition tape, like that, like 1 to 5 minute initial tape?
it can really depend because some being a bit more. I know for Hometown Summer, thinking back on that, I think I put around like of all of that work, probably close to like 2 hours of just
For the
and
first
that
tape?
yeah, and that
Mm.
was just for like all of the work included. And then as far as actually filming of it,
Mm.
probably like another hour to an hour and a half
Mm.
getting a take I was happy with.
Yeah, yeah. So that's interesting because I was talking to my cousin about this the other day about how you don't know like with like self tapes like how many tapes it takes like before like an actor finds like the tape they like
Mm.
if you don't mind sharing like do you know like how many takes you took or like on average like how many you can expect to take.
I feel like it's all in kind of my mindset of the day. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
feeling super hard on myself, it could hit double digits very
Okay,
easily,
yeah.
especially if I have like only one scene to do, I feel like I have more freedom to take way too long to get it done. Um, but yeah, it can hit double digits. I think I like to try to get around like 4 to 5,
Okay.
just so I can sit and look through them all. Because I've learned I'll never be happy with the whole thing,
Hmm.
and that's kind of a cool thing about acting is that different things happen in each take or each night of a
Hmm.
show,
Yeah.
and to just have fun with that and embrace it.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. You're talking about how you started off on stage. You're looking to go more on screen, and that's seems like what you've been doing lately. I think that this is an interesting subject for, especially for like a lot of people that aren't involved in like the creative space about like the differences between acting on stage and acting on screen. Like I know there's like a
Mhm.
ton of differences. Could you just share like what some of those differences are?
Yeah, so I'd say the biggest difference is like the size of everything.
Mm-hmm.
So like the size of physical gestures, the size of uh, facial expressions, the
Mm-hmm.
size of your voice as well. With film acting, you can be so much more subtle. And
Mm-hmm.
a professor of mine, Ryan Welsh, he said that you know you're doing it right when it feels like you're not doing enough.
Mm-hmm.
When it like to you it feels boring, uh, and that's I really like that because I feel like that's the most realistic aspect of humans, I guess. So like with film, when the camera's like right here, I can it can just be in my eyes and just be in my thought and so personal, and because that's how people are.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and on stage, it's so everything's so big because the person all the way in the back needs to see and understand what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think like that size of everything is the biggest difference.
Yeah. So like when you're, I guess like, would you say that you're like trying to be more subtle,
Hmm.
like when you're on screen,
Yeah, yeah,
whereas like
way
on
more
stage you're
subtle.
trying to make everything. Yeah, I guess like bigger is like the word. Like you're just trying
Hmm.
to like blow everything out of proportion, essentially.
Yeah, like using your whole body. Like 'cause something that was told me is stage is using your whole body, as like you have your head, your chest, and then your legs. And in film, you have like your eyebrows, your eyes, and your mouth, because everything that the camera sees is in the eyes, because you're usually close enough to see that, especially in dialogue scenes. And
Mm-hmm.
that's something that I like about film is in more intimate scenes, it's always felt weird to me on stage projecting and being super loud during an intimate scene when I'm like, I feel like I need to be really quiet right now, though. And film lets me do that.
Yeah, yeah. Could you elaborate on what you mean by like a more intimate scene, or give an
Yeah, so like,
example?
so like, well, in, can I mention a scene from Hometown Summer?
Yeah.
So there's a scene where it was after the second party where Samantha and Brian color, and
Mm-hmm.
they like Samantha leaves and her friends all leave, and then Owen comes in and he sits down next to Brian, and he's kind of asking like, did he have sex with her? And that scene is very late in the day. It's like 2, 3 in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like a very personal conversation with the two of them because he is
Mm-hmm.
genuinely asking, and so it's a very quiet, mellow scene. Like the lighting is very dark. It's a very
Mm-hmm.
beautiful scene. I remember shooting that, and so it's just a very personal and like two people really connecting on a deep level. It would be the same thing if like there was a couple in a scene and they were having a very like sweet connecting moment. It's
Mm-hmm.
just very low, and because also if you're like right next to each other, you don't need to be loud.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, that is interesting. Just thinking about it, like how like that would like play out on stage. So like
hmm
if you have like that like intimate couple scene on stage, like essentially like it's like yeah, I mean like how would that work?
yeah. So like Wherein on film, you can speak very low. You can speak almost just from the mouth
Hmm.
because there's mics picking you up. On stage, you still have to speak from your diaphragm, and so
Hmm.
you're still projecting pretty loud. Like it'll seem when you're sitting next to the actor in this doing the scene on stage, it'll feel kind of ridiculous because
Hmm.
it feels almost like you're shouting to each other because of projection. And mics, usually on stage you are mic'd as well.
Right.
Um, but I know in some smaller spaces you won't be. And I've done a few shows like that, and it's just important to always remember it's better to be a little loud than too quiet. I'd rather people complain that it seemed like I was yelling sometimes than
Hmm.
I couldn't hear what he was saying. Uh, so it's the projection,
Uh,
which is tricky. Yeah,
yeah. And then film, it's going to be the exact opposite.
yeah,
Yeah, I think like thinking about it, like every musical I've ever been to, musical or like just theater production, like I've always been at the top.
hmm
So I've never like noticed anything like seeming like wild in terms of like projection or like overly animated gestures or facial expressions. Like I'm wondering what it would be like to like be in the front row.
yeah. I've seen a couple productions pretty close, or some friends got some tickets that were in the richer people area, and I was wearing sweatpants, so I felt very out of place. But
Yeah.
it, it it's really cool because it's like you can actually like when you're far away, it looks like you're just watching this crazy thing unfold. But being so close, you can like really see the actor, like see the detail. You can see the mic, and so it's almost it's a different experience. It's
Oh, I'm sure.
I still think it's very cool, and it is more intimate being so close.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's cool. If you ever get the chance, I do recommend. Uh,
Yeah,
Even
definitely.
small theaters where you are close, no matter what. It's really cool.
Yeah, no, I would be curious, especially like based on everything you just said. Like I would be curious
hmm
the difference in experience between like front row and being all the way in the back. Because like I
hmm
think like with like going to the movie theater, like I feel like outside of just like personal preference, I don't think there really is much of a difference between sitting in the front, middle, or back. But it
Yeah,
sounds like it's just like a completely different experience when going to the going to like the Fox or the Fisher Broadway.
yeah, yeah. Especially when it's a huge space like those ones. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I'm wondering, Hometown Summer is obviously a comedy.
hmm
Was that the first comedy you've done? Because I know like a lot of it seems like at least theatrical productions tend to be a lot more dramatic. I don't know in terms of like the short films you've done. Like what genres have you worked with?
I did a lot of comedy. I basically
Oh, really?
only did comedy before college.
Oh, okay. Like
Um,
in terms of the stage productions too.
yeah, and then
Okay, interesting.
even one of the short films I did was kind of dramatic comedy. Like
Hmm.
it was a little bit of both. I was kind of more comedic relief in
Hmm.
that film, and so I've done quite a lot of comedy. And then in college, I've done more drama since.
Interesting. Okay, okay. So it is standard. Like my read wasn't completely off. That like the college theatrical productions tend to be more dramatic.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say typically they do lean towards more dramatic. It can also depend on the season because I know uh, there have been seasons where it was they were kind of all comedies, and then also
Mm.
where there were all super serious dramas. Um,
Yeah. So are
yeah,
those like the two main genres you've worked within, comedy and drama, or have you done like horror, thriller, or suspense, anything like that?
I did one the film I did just before like in my senior year called Feast Your Eyes. That I'd say was a little more like thriller teetering into horror, not
Mm.
quite horror, but definitely thriller because I was like this reporter doing a story about this guy who was a cannibal
Oh wow.
and
Okay.
and my character was not right in the mind completely.
Yeah.
He is a little on edge, and that was a lot of fun to work with. That like thriller, unsettling aspect.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah.
it sounds like you've got a lot of experience within different genres. I'm just asking all these questions just because I'm wondering, like, does your process change in approaching a role, like based on the genre or based on the type of character, or do you have like the same general principles, or is it like a combination of both? Because like I assume it's going to be very different working on a comedic set versus a dramatic set versus a thriller set.
Yeah. I like that question because it definitely is going to vary actor to actor.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I think overall for me, I come at it in a pretty similar way.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, the way I kind of think about it is in a drama, in a comedy, in a horror, whatever genre it is, my character's taking it seriously
Mm-hmm.
because
Yeah.
it's their life. So they don't
Mm-hmm.
think it's funny. They don't think it's whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to take it seriously. And I think that on top of the fact that whenever I get a script, something that I do, like when I got the auditioning script for this, was I look at when I read it, I try to figure out what the world is
Mm-hmm.
and like kind of the world building that has been made in the script I've seen so far. And it's that on top of my character takes this seriously to see like what is realistic within this world. Because
Mm-hmm.
like Hometown Summer is based in pretty much our reality.
Right. Yeah.
But something like Clue, I did
Mm-hmm.
Clue on stage, and
Mm-hmm.
that's a bit more out there. It's a bit more wild and a bit more extravagant. So it's whatever is in the confines of like the script that is given. I'd say is a big thing. I'm trying to focus on
Yeah.
as well.
So would you say the way you approach everything is more dependent on the world? Like if we're in like a more
Mhm.
realistic world or more out there, you'd say that that has a bigger influence than the genre.
Yeah,
Interesting. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah, I think that that is an interesting point you brought up about comedy, about how like in everyone's life within the story, like for like that actor, like it's not supposed to be funny, and
hmm
I think that that's probably what makes comedy so difficult is like taking everything so seriously, like when what's going on is at least supposed to be funny.
yeah,
And I think that that's something that's very difficult for a lot of actors is like
yeah,
not trying to be funny, but like trusting in that, like the direction and the editing and just the overall like vibe between each other is like going to be what's funny and less so like trying to like tell a joke or like look at me, look at what I'm doing right here and whatnot.
yeah. Because that's I think most of the time what's funny in comedies is it's just the situation will be ridiculous, and then
Mm,
you have these people taking it completely seriously. It's not
mm,
even often, like you said, like a one-liner that's just so funny. And the reason like a line would be really funny is because of how it relates to this ridiculous situation that's happening.
mm,
Like I know uh, there's one scene when Travis came in and was talking crap to Brian.
mm.
We were getting his coverage, and there were some days on set where me and Ryland and Henry we were just exceptionally giggly that day,
Mm.
and this was one of those days, and I had to just put my head down like in my lap, and I
Mm.
just couldn't look at him or hear him. But he needed me for the eye line, so I had to be sitting
Right.
there,
Yeah.
and so it can be hard sometimes, but always trying to just stay grounded and stay focused on your character's experience rather than my as Ben experience.
Mm. Yeah,
That's what I
definitely.
find helps.
Yeah. Yeah. It's teetering in off of like what you just said about like being on set with Ben Arms, who played Travis.
Mm-hmm.
He was very funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess like just like the overall vibe on sets when you have like comedy, drama, thriller. Do you notice on average like a different vibe based on like the genre you're working in, or does it all kind of blend together?
Um, I think usually what I found on sets that I would consider to have been like a good, healthy working environment.
Mm-hmm.
I think usually it should kind of feel like you're making a comedy, like
Mm-hmm.
when you're not actually filming it. Everyone should be having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
Because also even in drama, like super dramatic, really tough stuff to deal with in a film, I think it's like that much more important to make the set feel very light
Mm-hmm.
and being able to joke around and get to know people and not take it too seriously. Uh, and help remembering the fact that like you're making a movie. It's fun,
Mm-hmm.
because you'll have long days that it'll feel like it's like I'm not having fun anymore. But that's what I always try to remind myself is I'm doing what I love, so
Mm-hmm.
it's never not going to be fun.
Right on, yeah. So like on dramatic sets and like the thriller set you mentioned, like
Mm.
generally like they're all pretty lighthearted, you'd say.
Oh yeah, yeah. As soon as I was always joking around on all of those sets and getting to know the director and the photographer, the camera ops, and all that. Uh, just always trying to make it a good, fun working environment for everyone because
Mm-hmm.
we'd be doing long days as well, and so it's easier to do a long day when you are having fun and enjoying the people you're with. So yeah, I'd say they've mostly been fun, good vibes.
Yeah, yeah. Because I've only ever been on comedy sets, and like I try to keep a very light vibe, and because I feel like that's so important, like working within that genre.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't sure, like if you're on like a dramatic set, if things are a lot more serious, just to keep with the vibes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are definitely certain scenes where if it's like a super intense scene,
Mm-hmm.
uh, people will be a bit more focused,
Mm-hmm.
and as the actor especially, if it's like a super intense scene, I don't want to pull myself out of it too much between takes. So there are
Mm-hmm.
some scenes where I am a bit more focused on the next take throughout the entirety of shooting it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know I guess the climax scenes of the thriller one I did, I wasn't as like when cut goes, I don't just start yapping and talking and whatnot. I'm still very focused on like this is what happened in this take.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I want to try in this next one. Stuff like that.
Yeah. So is it difficult, like when the director calls cut, going in between scenes, like going back and forth between, like, so like we'll use for example Hometown Summer, like going back in between like Brian, now you're Ben, now you're Brian again, now you're Ben. Like I know I've heard. I heard one director on a podcast talking about how like he doesn't even yell cut, like he just tries to keep everyone in character, like from the beginning of set to lunch break, and then after lunch is over, going back and like just like staying in character. Do you find it difficult? Yeah, like moving in between like who you are and the character you're playing. Like, would you find it more helpful if cut was never called? What are your overall thoughts on that?
I I think a lot of that work is just doing what an actor is supposed to be doing prior to getting to set.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm able to just take a beat and drop into the character.
Mm-hmm.
And then, because cut is also helpful so that I know I can uh, do other things that I need to do when I'm not actually being filmed.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it depends on the actor. But I think cut is useful, and I think it's as long as I've done the work that I should have done,
Mm-hmm.
it shouldn't be too hard to be able to snap in and out because that's kind of what I train to be able to do.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of on the same tangent.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I know like for sure like Brian and like the character you mentioned from the thriller you played, like very different from who you are as a person. how do you do it? How do you go from being Ben to immersing yourself in this character in this world?
Yeah. So with character building, it's kind of like I mentioned. I'll write out like a diagram, like a table
Hmm.
with uh, psychological, physiological, and then vocal.
Hmm.
And like I kind of know where I am, where I live in each of these things, and then I'll, based on the script and everything that like I've talked about with the director, writer, uh, I'll build off of what I know from the script, what I know from the director or writer, and then I'll build in what I think makes sense from like the text and everything that's been said as to what would track and make sense that this is a
Hmm.
real person for all of these three.
Hmm.
And then if I kind of see some similarities or differences between me or the character, I'll hone in on both sides of that
Hmm.
because it having contrasting things within a character, uh, like someone who's like really strong but has a very sensitive side to certain people or certain topics.
Hmm.
I think that's what makes for a dynamic character,
Hmm.
having like many facets because people do have many facets. Nobody's just one thing.
Hmm.
And so just trying to get really specific with everything
Hmm.
uh, as overall, I think the thing that I try to focus on.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So like when you're in the moment and the camera's rolling, like do you feel yourself become that character, or do you still feel like yourself, but maybe you're more so just like trying to relate what's going on to past experiences in your life, or like what does that feel like when action is called?
Yeah. I'm, there are times like I've heard it referred to as like the flow state when when it feels like you're almost watching it in third person
Hmm.
where you really are deeply in it and deeply connected and thinking as the character and that's another thing that I do that I think helps with that. I
Hmm.
think most of the time I do feel like the character. Sometimes I'll be in my own head thinking too much about, oh, what am I doing wrong? Is my hand weird where it is? Do I need to move that? But
Hmm.
when I'm doing it correctly, I'll be thinking as the character,
Hmm.
going
Okay.
like internal monologue,
Yeah.
and that just helps keeps me on track, and that also helps make it more real because then my impulses and reactions to everything are genuine to
Hmm.
what this character feels in that moment.
Hmm.
So I think most of overall the answer is uh, I feel as though I'm the character. There's not a lot going on as far as Ben.
Hmm. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you're getting ready to move out to LA soon. I assume that means that you probably have a pretty positive slash optimistic outlook for the near future slash future of the film industry. I know there's been a lot of doom and gloom. I know we had like the huge strike last year, and there were pending strikes that we avoided, like with IATSE and Teamsters. It seems like there's diverse and polarizing opinions about like what the future of film and television looks like. Just curious your thoughts on the topic as a whole.
Yeah, I'm a very optimistic person,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, I I'm also very religious, so I feel like those kind of go hand in hand. That I feel like things will work out, and however it works out, I do think it will get better because I feel like there's a lot of people with good intentions
Mm-hmm.
coming into the industry as well as already in it, and so I do think things will get better with it, and people are starting to want more. Uh, I guess diversity of kinds of movies instead of
Mm-hmm.
just like huge like Disney productions of like
Yeah.
Marvel or Disney. I think people are really latching on to just standalone movies that are coming out because we haven't had a ton
Mm-hmm.
like big. standalone titles in a while that weren't remakes. And
Right, yeah.
yeah, and I think just talking to other people within the industry, kind of at my level, and then also what I know about people very well known in the industry, is it gives me hope that I think we'll be able to pull out of it and find a new place to kind of land and create.
Yeah, I mean, I think things are definitely turning around. I think they have started to, especially I think this summer was really good, at least in terms
Hmm.
of box office. Things are starting to get better for the theaters, which inevitably
Yeah,
will mean it's better for the film industry as a whole. I mean, I'm right there with you completely on wanting more original work. Well, I think originality is overrated. I think that like in terms of concepts, I guess like what I meant was I think that I would like to see less like sequels and existing IPs.
yeah,
When I said like originality is overrated, like at least for me, like I feel like all of my favorite films, or most of them at least, are like all generally like it's thinking like in terms of like comedy, like all of my favorites are kind of just like everyday life kind of things that like we all experience and we've all gone through, and like I'd love to see more of those sorts of films. I think
hmm,
sometimes I get lost like when creators are like trying to go too far in the realm of originality and what have we not seen before. I mean, to each their own. That's definitely a
yeah,
hot take. But yeah, I mean, like, box office was very good in June, July, and August. September's looking really good. I mean, I know these are sequels, but I know the Beetlejuice, and Gladiator, and Joker are all like projected to do really well, which should be really good for the industry. And I know that we just had like such like a break because the strike was so long
yeah,
for both the actors and the writers that like that inevitably was going to take a serious toll on the box office. Like I don't know that people even realize that like don't go to the theaters as often because like I go all the time, but like they don't realize that like it's not normal to have like one big movie coming out every 5 weeks. Like that, it's supposed to be like a lot more common. Like you're supposed to get like several a month, and we're
yeah,
starting to see that more. But then like I think that like definitely too like in terms of like non-existing IP and non-sequels, like I think I don't know if you're familiar with the movie Long Legs that Nicolas Cage just starred in. It's an original horror movie that just came out 2 months ago. Like that had like a $9 million budget and did over $100 million at the box office, which I think is a really
wow,
good sign.
yeah,
It seems like horror in general has
hmm,
kind of held its own in terms of non-existing IP, non-sequel.
yeah,
I would love to see it more with thrillers and of course comedy.
hmm,
But I think that you can do a lot with thrillers. I mean, even like a good drama. I know that's a bit harder, but I mean, I like to stay optimistic and believe that there still is that hunger for that new original concept.
yeah. And I think because of the strike and because of the COVID shutdown, and both of those being so close to each other, I think a lot of people in the industry and out of the industry are feeling that. And I
Yeah.
know, like A24 is a very big independent film company, like separate from
Yeah.
uh, SAG and all that. And they've been doing very well. They've put out a lot of really
Yeah.
big movies
Yeah. I mean,
and
yeah. I
their
mean,
original ideas. So,
yeah. They've been a bright spot. And like you said, I mean, they've definitely been getting bigger. I mean, without looking it up, I think Civil War had a $50 million budget, if I'm not mistaken, and like that's like studio level kind of
yeah.
budget. So it has been good and refreshing to see them. I know Neon has been doing quite well too. They seem to be one of the big up and coming independent studios, and I mean they just had that big hit with Long Legs. Yeah, I mean, it seems like independent film has done a lot better theatrically since like COVID and the strikes and
Hmm.
everything like that. That has kind of given them a good outlet, which I love.
Yeah, because
I would love to see, like I said, like I would love to see more comedies being made.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, I think there definitely is a light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, I think, and I don't even think this is debatable. I think we definitely like hit, we hit like, trying to think of the right term. For like lack of a better term, we hit rock bottom already, and we're already coming back up. I mean, it seems like things are really
yeah,
starting to come together a lot better now.
yeah. And as far as like the idea of what we were talking about, the kinds of movies we want to see, I think that's why in more independent studios like A24 are doing so well is because they're putting out a lot
Mm-hmm.
of new ideas and just new stories and something that's a simple standalone. And also because of like that like shutdown, nobody could do anything, nobody could make anything. So
Yeah, yeah, no,
yeah,
you said that definitely. Like, yeah, COVID plus the strikes.
yeah,
It's going to lead to some dark days. But I mean, thankfully, it seems like those are all behind us. And yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I think that also like just what's so great about like what A24 and Neon are doing, and hopefully more independent studios. I mean, I know that like Jason Blum is big on this as well. Is like just like when you keep the budget low, it's going to become like much less of a risk, and they seem to do that so well. So like they are able to take those risks
Hmm.
and able to have a lot more successes as a result.
Yeah. This is an intense thing to put a bunch of money on a new idea that you don't
Yeah,
know if people will like it. Yeah.
yeah. Well, hopefully we see a lot more success there on that front. I mean, that would be great.
Mm.
I mean, it's Hollywood is definitely very trend heavy, and I mean, all it takes is one
Yeah.
for them to start going in that direction. But yeah, just kind of starting to wrap it up a bit now. Just some questions that I'm going to ask all of my guests. If there was one actor that you could work with on set, who would it be?
Oof. I have many answers for this, but oof.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, because I have a ton of different answers for a bunch of different reasons, but I think I'd go with Jake Gyllenhaal
Okay.
for a couple reasons. One, I like a lot. I like the kinds of movies he does,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to do movies like that.
Mm-hmm.
So working with him, I'd be able to do a movie that's very dramatic and in the head, like very heady in the sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like Prisoners with him and Hugh Jackman was
Mm-hmm.
an amazing movie. Um, and then also, I really respect him as an actor, and I think like I've heard him talk about his process and things he does. I think he's up there as far as who I'd like to work with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good choice. One director and or writer you would like to work with?
Uh, I think Taylor Sheridan,
I'm going to be
Yellowstone.
completely honest. I'm not familiar with the name.
He wrote Yellowstone and the prequels of that, Sicario,
Okay.
stuff like that. Yeah, he's a phenomenal writer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I'd love to. And then he also, I think, directs some of the stuff as well, but I think he is more on the writing
Mm-hmm.
side. But I'd love to work with him. And then also Kurt Sutter, he writes and directs stuff. He did Sons of Anarchy and
Oh,
all
okay.
those.
Yeah.
So I'd love to work with either or both of them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then top five comedies of all time.
Oof. Ooh. This will absolutely change depending on the day or
Yeah.
time you ask. I'm gonna try to stray away from anything that is like a series,
Okay.
uh, just because that'd be too much. Uh, I think I know I just said I would stray away from series, but Rush Hour.
Okay. Those are
I'm gonna say
fun.
the first one, the Rush Hour movie,
It's been a while since
hilarious.
I've seen those, but I
Yeah,
I, I really enjoyed them.
it's one of my favorite like buddy cop esque movies. It's just so good, and I love Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan. Um, We're the Millers is a
I
really
enjoyed that one a
funny one.
lot. Yeah, that's it's got a really strong cast. Good
Yeah,
writing. Yeah.
that had a really good movie. Hmm, like a lot more of the ones I'll probably list will be a bit more modern.
Oh, that's fine.
Um,
I think like all of mine would be like late '90s to late 2000s. So I'm right there with you.
Trying to think of ones I've seen recently. I'm really bad about watching movies lately. Uh, hmm. Oh, I think this has a similar. I think Jason Sudeikis, I think is in this as well. Horrible Bosses.
Oh yeah,
I
that's
believe that.
where I thought you were going when you started to say that. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, he's great.
he's that's a really good movie.
Yeah, that I like the sequel a lot too.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I really like Adam Sandler. I
Yeah,
think
me too.
he's very popular, but I feel like his movies are underrated. Still, like I think people just kind of brush him off as uh, like dumb movies, but
Yeah,
I really like a lot of his movies, and I'll put Grown Ups in
yeah, that's
because
fun.
I really enjoyed that movie.
Yeah,
And then five, I'll say Get Him to the Greek
okay.
with
The Russell
Jonah Hill
Brand.
and Russell
Yeah.
Brand. That movie was so funny to me the first time I watched it. I remember I like spit out water at one scene during the like after Jonah Hill got hit with the adrenaline needle. I like that movie was really funny. Yeah, and that would probably change tomorrow if you asked me. But
Yeah.
as of right now, those are some top five.
Oh, it's a good list. Original too. I wouldn't be surprised if none of those get repeated. So yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's cool. And then where can people find you online?
You can find me on Instagram at Ben Corsi one, and then I am going to be slowly working on getting a website up for acting. But as of now, Instagram at Ben Corsi one.
Cool. And I
Yeah.
will plug that in the show notes. But great. It was awesome talking to you, Ben.